Hello, everyone. This episode is all about the belief that we have and that often we don't even know that we have them, that are unconscious to us. And how do we start to change them when they are blocking us, when they are limiting us in our life? And I want to start this with a story. Growing up, I never learned how to ride a bicycle, or at least I learned, but I was never comfortable riding a bicycle. And so for the longest time, I didn't ride bicycles. And then fast forward to when I was an adult, I remember in 2020 when the pandemic happened, there were not really too many stuff that we could do. And one of the things that you could do outside, it was outdoor activities, taking walks or going on bike rides. And I remember my sister invited me to go to a bike ride or to a bike ride in the beach. And at this moment, I knew I was not comfortable riding bikes, but I wanted to try something different. I remember going. And that first day, it was horrible. Not against everything. I not against people. I screamed a lot. I got some bumps, but I had fun. I had a lot of fun. I started thinking to myself, why had I not ride bicycles more often when I was growing up? I was simply, when I started to look back, it was simply because I always believed that I could not do it, that I was not good at it, that I was not capable of it, that I was going to look bad, that I was going to embarrass myself, that I will fall, that I will hurt myself. And so I didn't do it. This is where I wanted to start. What are those beliefs that are blocking you, that are limiting you, that you for sure think that you cannot do? I call this the never belief. All those things that you say, oh, I will never do this. I could never do this. I never do this. I'm not that kind of person. All those never belief that you tell to yourself and to others repeatedly. So the first thing, the first stage to be able to change any belief is to become aware that you have that belief. And you have to start asking yourself, what are those things that you are always saying that you will never do, that you will not do, that you are not capable of doing, that you are not that kind of person? Because those things that you are constantly repeating yourself often are limiting belief about what you can and cannot do. So the first stage is awareness. What are those things that you're constantly repeating to yourself that you cannot do? Then when you have determined all those beliefs about the things that you cannot do, you have to start digging a little bit deeper and ask yourself why you cannot do them, why you could never do that, why you didn't want to do them. Because often it's because at some moment or other we learn that we could not do those things, that those things will make us look bad or embarrassed or will hurt us in one manner or another. I want you to ask yourself and be very honest, what are those things that you are blocking yourself with? What are those beliefs that are blocking your life? Another belief that I had about this is that growing up, I was never really very outgoing or very extroverted. And so I didn't feel comfortable in social settings, in like big parties or hanging out with big groups. I was never comfortable. And at some point, I started to relate that with me not being capable of dating, with me not being good at dating, with me not being comfortable being with the opposite sex. And so for the longest times, I didn't date, I didn't go on dates, I didn't allow myself to experience more of a social life. I was very sheltered. One thing that changed how I saw things is that one of my friends for me, I saw her like we were similar in that sense that she was also very sheltered, very family oriented, very private. She started dating and she got engaged. And I didn't even know that she was dating at the moment, and she got engaged. And I remember asking her in her engagement party, how did it happen? How did they meet? And she told me that it was a family friend, that they have known each other for the longest time, and that she never pictured him as someone that she was interested. But then one day he picked her up and they started talking and they connected over music. And it's a small thing, but that little shift of seeing someone that I related was similar to me or similar to how I acted and how my demeanor was with the opposite sex, showed me that there are many ways in which relationships can happen. And this is my second point. After becoming aware of the limiting belief that you have and starting unblocking them and starting asking yourself, why do you have those beliefs? The second step to start changing them is to find expanders, to find examples of people doing things or doing the things that you thought that were not possible. In this, it's very important to find people you relate to, people that you think are similar to you, or find examples in situations, in places, in persons of the things that you thought at the beginning that you were not possible for you. Because what this does is that it shows you that is possible. It shows you different alternatives, different options, different possibilities. And so when I started seeing, or when I saw her, which I thought she was similar to me in that sense of not being very outgoing or not being very extroverted, being very private, being very family oriented, as someone who was dating and who got engaged, I started seeing that as a possibility for me. I was like, oh, this is something that I can also start meeting people or even people that I already know and start finding those interests, those common interests. And it's not that scary. So it's a small shift, but that's how you start opening yourself to more possibilities. This relates to all those never beliefs that I told you before. Something that I often say to myself is that I was never athletic, that I was never good at sports, that I was not good at running, that I will never do CrossFit or anything that was intense, because I always thought that I was not capable, because I always thought that I was not good at those things. And so I remember meeting my now boyfriend. I remember meeting him, and in our first day, he started telling me about how he ran marathons and how he had run, I think at that moment, he ran like 26, 27. I was like, for me, that was something that only professional athletes or people very fit did. So I remember asking him how he got into running. And he told me, oh, it's because I play American football when I was in high school and when I was in college. And that involved a lot of running. I have to run a lot for my trainings. So I continued running. I will go on long runs. And I remember thinking at that moment, oh, it's because he's a professional athlete. He does this because he's a professional athlete. So he kind of certified my belief that only people who were very fit or athletic will do this. But then I remember when we were a few months into dating, he asked me to go with him to Nashville with his family because he was running a marathon there. And he asked me if I wanted to go with him. And I remember going, and that was the first time that I ever went to a race. I ever went to a sportive event. And I remember noticing the people who were running the marathon. And that was kind of like another expansive moment for me. I saw a lot of expanders there because I was thinking, oh, only very athletic people do this, only very like professional athletes or very fit people do this. And then you go to those events and you see people from all ages, from all races, from all kind of body shapes, from all kind of lifestyles, doing the marathon, doing those events. I remember being there and kind of like noticing people who were very young and also people who were older. Noticing people who were very skinny, but also like people who were bigger. And I think I started to think, oh, this is something that anyone can do. And I remember walking alongside the marathon path. And at one point, there were two police cars closing the race. And the last person, they were guarding the last person going after him. And the last person was an older man, probably around 80, 90. And he was just kind of like semi-jogging, semi-walking. And I remember thinking, wow, you can be 80, you can be 90, you can kind of like semi-jog and semi-walk, and you can still do a marathon. And that was like a big opening, a big mind opening for me, because it showed me that those kind of things were not only for professional athletes or for people who were in perfect like athletic condition. It was also for regular people like me who wanted to simply run a marathon, who wanted to give themselves the chance to experience that. That's when I decided to start running. And I ran my first half marathons a couple of months, probably like 3, 4 months after that. And I remember after running my first half marathon saying, I want to run a full marathon. And the thing is that we don't notice, but those beliefs that we cannot do something, they start slowly, progressively becoming into belief that we can do something. But but it happens in very small ways. We have to first become aware that we have those beliefs in the first place, that we cannot do something, that we are not capable of something, that we will never do something. And then start finding those examples, those expanders, that's possible for us. I start shifting our mindset. I start shifting what we think is possible for us. And that was one moment where those things that I believe were possible for me changed. Because I started seeing other people who look like me, or at least that I felt more connected to. They showed me that it was possible to do it because they were doing it themselves. And so that's why I wanted to share that. And the thing is that I haven't run a full marathon yet. That was over 3 years ago, my first half marathon. And since then, I have been saying, I would like to do a full marathon. And just recently is when I started to believe I can do that. I can do one. I can prepare myself to do a full marathon. I just started training for a full marathon, but that happened very progressively. That didn't happen overnight because those beliefs that we can do something, they change little by little by noticing how other people do it and starting to create that evidence ourselves that we can do it. So the first one, as I said before, is the limiting belief, becoming aware of what are your unconscious limiting belief. Then asking yourself why, and start unblocking those reasons why we think we are not capable of doing something. Then the second is to find our expanders, to find the people, the places, the situations, the events, the experiences that expand our view of what is possible. And here I want to say something. It's very important to also feel connected to those things. Feel like we can see ourselves in that. That's why they say representation matters so much. Because if you cannot see yourself represented in something, you won't be able to connect to it. You won't be able to think that that's capable for you too. Because you will say, oh, they are different to me. They are more capable. They have other conditions. They have more money. They have more time. They have more talent, whatever it is. But if you can see yourself in the shoes of that person who is doing that thing that you want to do, if you can connect to that person, if you can relate in a basic level to that person who is doing that activity or that experience that you want to have, if you can connect to that person, you can start seeing yourself in their shoes and start imagining that's a possibility for you too. So that's why it's so important to find those things that allow you to see yourself doing those activities, developing those skills, creating those experiences, whatever it is that you want, accomplishing those goals. This is very important. Find the expanders that relate to you, that make you feel like things are possible. I believe this is why we like the stories of the underdog so much, because we relate to the ordinary people who have challenges, have obstacles, and still pursue their goals and still accomplish their goal and go after their dreams. And we connect with that. So that's why start looking for those role models, for those places, for those situations, for those events that you feel connected to, that you feel relate to you, and that expand your view of what is possible. Because they give you those small maybes into what is an opportunity, what is a possibility for you. They open you to see new things as possible for you, for your life and for yourself. That's why environment is so important as well. Because when we are close to people who is discussing big ideas, who people who have big dreams, big goals, who people who is doing big things, when we are close to these people in a consistent basis, we get that influence. We start seeing that as a possibility for ourselves too, for as a possibility for our life too. And it can be true for any domain or any area of your life. It can be on sports and physical fitness, whether it's in a gym environment or being connected to someone because you have the same goal of doing a race or doing a competitive event. It can also be in the area of developing a business or developing your career, where you are networking with people in an area of expertise that you want to develop yourself in. Or when you start joining and talking with groups of other entrepreneurs, if you are also in the same path of launching a business. It can be with personal finance, when you see someone save money and invest money and you say, oh, I could do the same. I can I can use those same systems. I can use those same methods to also improve my finances. Or even in relationships and family, when you see others doing something and you start opening yourself to that possibility. And this is an example that also happened to me. For my whole life, I was not sure if I wanted to have kids or if I was going to be a mom, because I was never very much, as I said before, into dating and into social goings. And I was not sure if that was something that was going to be for me. And then 5 years ago, my brother had a baby, my little niece, Antonella, and that started opening my mind and started opening my life to dealing with little babies and to notice this stage of how they learn things when they are small. And then 3 years ago, my sister also have a baby, my other niece, Mia, and that opened myself to how is the whole transition from a perspective of what is having a is dealing with a baby, with a newborn, with a young kid in your daily life. And I think those things started opening my mind to the possibility that I could also have a family. I could also build a family myself. I could also have kids. And it's those small things when you start interacting with my kids. Now, a lot of my friends have babies and have young kids. My boyfriend have a daughter. So those little interactions here and there have allowed me to be more comfortable with the idea of me becoming a mom, of me having my own family, because it shows you what is possible for you. It shows you how that reality looks. And you start becoming more comfortable. You start becoming familiar to it, and you start believing that it's a possibility for you too, that you could also do it. So as I say before, this happens progressively over time. And at some point, you start opening yourself to a new belief and a new way things could be in your life. You start believing that you can do new things, that you can do things differently in your life. You can always create new experiences, new opportunities for yourself. So this is stage 2, when you start noticing that other people are doing it and you start believing that it's a possibility for you as well. And then the stage 3, and they all go cyclical. There is no linear. They're all happening at the same time, all the time. But the third stage is aligned action. You have to start creating and cultivating those small actions that make you believe that you are capable. For example, for me with running, I started seeing that a lot of people run, a lot of people did marathons, and they were all kind of shape and physical conditions and races and ages. That made me believe that I was capable of doing it too. But the truth is that until I didn't start running myself, until I didn't start challenging myself with farther runs and with more difficult rounds and faster rounds, I didn't believe that was completely a possibility for me, because I had no proof. Others like myself were doing it, but I didn't have proof yet that I was doing it. So those small aligned actions, when you start believing and when you start noticing that it's a possibility, that's what really changed your belief that something is a possibility for you. You have to first become aware of why you limiting belief. Then second, notice the expanders, notice the people who you relate to, notice the situation, the places, the events, the experiences that you relate to that expand your worldwide. And then the third one, you have to stay aligned small action that creates that evidence, that creates that proof that you can do that too. And that start changing your belief that you are not capable of something. So those are the three stages to creating new belief, to start changing your limiting belief, and to start going after the things that you want. Because you can have all that hope and all that faith, but until you start taking those actions and cultivating those bias for action and creating that proof for yourself, you won't be able to completely 100% change your belief that you are capable of doing something. With this, I just wanted to remind you that you are capable of doing anything that you want, but you have to start believing that you are capable of doing anything you want. And then you have to be willing to work for it. And that's where you become aware of the things that you are constantly telling yourself that you cannot do, that you will never do. Then you find the role models and find the examples that is possible for you. And then third, you start taking a light action for what you want. And you start cultivating and creating that proof, because that change what you believe, what you think is possible. I just want to end with this. You can do this at any moment that you want in your life, but you have to be ready to want to change those beliefs. You have to be ready to challenge all the bullshit and all the put that you are constantly telling yourself that you cannot do, and start noticing all the possibilities that are open for yourself. Start acting on those possibilities. Start creating those small actions daily, consistently, that you are capable of doing those things, that you are capable of creating those things in your life. Okay? First, become aware and unblock all those limiting beliefs, all those never beliefs that you are constantly telling yourself. Second, find your expanders. Find the things that expand your view of what is possible for you and what is possible in the world. And third, they align a small action daily consistently that makes you cultivate and create that evidence that you are capable of more. That's what will change your belief. And changing your belief of the things that you are capable and not capable will change your life. Thank you so much for listening to me or for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Pass it to a friend and tag me on Instagram at Jenny Sertal what resonated the most with you. And I will see you in the next episode. Remember, I'm forever rooting for you, and you got this.